It is exactly 11 after 9 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. The second hour of the show, right here on News and Views. Salam Media is obviously the place that we're at. We're all about humanitarian journalism, and we do hope and pray that you do follow us regularly on all our different platforms and enjoy the type of information we share with you. Next up, we are going to be talking with Nadir Fortune. He's a consultant at Capital Legacy, and we are looking at the issue around National Wills Week. It had kicked off yesterday. And this is all about your last will and testament, which serves as the key tool in ensuring your wishes are carried out after you pass away. It determines the distribution of your belongings and property and provides for your family and loved ones. Having a well prepared will not only simplify the process for your family, but also minimize stress during a very challenging time. So, we're going to be talking to Nadir about Tazkiya, how it serves us as the Muslim community, and how it is important that we look at the issue around our wills and maybe consider this as our last will and testament. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program, Nadir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your platform. All right, so
All
sorry.
right, I guess the starting point is what is Tazkiya, and also that every year this time we are reminded about drawing up our last will and testament. Obviously, it's very, very important indeed. But this is where Tazkiya comes in. What exactly is it?
So basically, Tazkiya is the Sharia division of Capital Legacy. We started, I think, just about over 2 years ago. So we're quite still new in the market. So basically, with the Sharia division, but Capital Legacy as a whole has been around for 11 years. Capital Legacy are the leaders in South Africa in terms of will drafting, estate planning, estate administration. So Tazkiya basically leverages off that as well, right? So yeah, the importance of having a will in South Africa, obviously South Africa is not an Islamic state. It's quite important for us we do have freedom of testation in South Africa. So it's quite important for us to exercise that right and to draft our Sharia wills so that it can be distributed correctly. It is a fard, it's quite important. If we look at Hadith, you should not let 2 nights pass without writing a will if you have anything to bequeath, as narrated by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is quite an important responsibility placed on Muslims to get their affairs in order.
Okay, 2 questions, very important. What does freedom of testation mean? And as Muslims, let's look at a family who have only boy children. Is it
Yes.
still necessary for them, for the parents, to make sure that they draw up a will and last testament? With the thinking that I've got sons, I don't have daughters. So if I die, the boys will be able to sort out the estate without too much of trouble, because we do know that according to Sharia, if there are girl children involved, if there's a mother that is still alive, if there's still sisters, etc., the parents, they have siblings outside of their boy children, that a certain portion goes to them as well. Is that still being exercised in South Africa? And is it good enough to say I've got boy children only, I don't need to have a will and testament?
So basically, not having a will takes away control from what you want to happen, right? If you don't have your will, then your estate will be distributed according to intestate succession, meaning that this will be distributed according to the government's legislation. So essentially, what you've done, you've removed control. It can take sometimes up to 10 years to wind up the estate. We've seen this in worst case scenarios. Your children's money can end up going to the government guardians fund for administration. And if you wanted it to be Sharia, then it's not going to be Sharia compliant. And we understand how important it is to have a Sharia will, because when it comes to other sort of ibadah, we look at hadith for those instructions. But when it comes to the distribution of the estate, Allah has taken it into His own hands and has put it into the Quran, and this can be found in Surah An-Nisa, basically.
Okay, a freedom of testation, what does that mean?
Basically, we have freedom to kind of say what we want to happen with our assets when we pass away within the confines of the law. So that also is not a Sharia state. However, the government is quite favorable towards our Muslim community. And if we do go with the Sharia will, the master's office does not move until a Jamia does issue a certificate of distribution.
Subhanallah, that's really amazing as far as we as Muslims in South Africa is concerned. Let's look at the Tazkiya Legacy Protection Plan. We understand that it comprises of 4 elements. What are
Yeah.
those?
All right, so basically, the Tazkiya Legacy Protection Plan, as the name suggests, it's there to protect your legacy when you pass away. So a lot of people know about drafting the will, but a lot of people don't know about the legal administration costs that happen in the background. So the protection plan is there to mitigate these costs. You must remember that if there's not enough liquidity in an estate once you've passed away, then the executors are obliged to auction assets, obviously in consultation with the beneficiaries. But sometimes it can be the difference of owning a property, not owning a property, owning a vehicle, not owning a vehicle. So this is why the protection plan was born. It's our flagship product. It's there to mitigate those costs. If we look at a general Islamic estate, there's quite a few beneficiaries to inherit. From there, we still need to deduct taxes. If the estate is over 3.5 million, we need to deduct debts if there's any debts on the estate. And this is there to mitigate that and to ensure that as much as possible can be left to your family.
Okay, so let's look at the actual will. So if I come to
Yes.
you, Nadir, and I say
Yes.
to you, it is National Wills Week, I need to make sure that my will is in order, but
Okay.
I don't have a Tazkiya Legacy Protection Plan. What's going to
Okay.
happen? How are you going to help me draw up a will which is still very friendly towards, obviously, my heirs? And
Okay.
as you've pointed out, that we want to mitigate costs as much as we possibly can. What's the
Okay.
advice you're going to give me?
All right. So if we look at, sorry, just a bit nervous. First time doing something like this. All right.
Nonsense! You're
Yeah.
doing
So
perfectly well. I'm so
really,
hanging on. I'm hanging on to every word you're telling me. I'm making notes here and saying to
yes,
myself, I need to consult with you regarding my will.
100%.
So
I'm your
you do,
go-to person. We'll sort you out. Yeah.
okay?
All
Super,
right. So
super. No, you're
firstly,
doing well.
at Tazkiya, firstly, we have worlds every day. It's not just the week. It's not just today, whatever it is. It's the whole entire year that we basically live and breathe worlds, right? So we still do the wills. It's a free consultation. We come out to you nationwide, especially in the main metros such as Gauteng, KZN, Western Cape, those sort of places. So we come out to you. We try to remove the barriers in terms of not having the time or to come out to us. So we come out to you. We do everything for you. Also with Tazkiya, if you just want the will, then we can do it for you. There's no obligation towards any solution. We also do kind of mitigate some of the costs for you, even if you don't take any of our solutions that we propose to you. I'm not sure if I've answered the question.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But I guess in the course of the discussion, when you go out to a client and you talk about the benefits of Tazkiya. Undoubtedly, a lot of people would then see that is very beneficial for them, and probably at that point in time decide to go that route. What is it all about, the Tazkiya Legacy Protection Plan? What would it cost me? And I know you're going to say depending on depending on your assets, depending
Yes,
what you're worth. So let's just
yes.
go for a ballpark figure and say, let's talk about 5 million rand, for example. My net
Okay,
worth being
so
5 million rands, and I'm wanting to go for a Tazkiya plan.
okay, there's a few considerations. So it's our solution is determined by your age, it's determined by the size of your estate, it's determined by if you have minor kids or not. Remember, if you do have minor kids in South Africa cannot legally inherit directly. We need to kind of either it goes to the government guardians fund for administration, or we use the trust to kind of manage those funds for the children. So if there's children involved, then those trust fees can be substantial, and sometimes we see that it can cripple the estate in terms of the fees that are associated with running, or the maintenance costs of the trust. So it's like very difficult for me to kind of say what you'd be looking at, but generally it's quite affordable if you look at what the monthly contribution is in comparison to what actually comes out of the estate once you've passed away. It's almost a no-brainer that the solution would take it, that it would be in your favor to go with the solution.
Nadir, let's talk about trust funds. A lot of people who have minor children or even grandparents who wanting to leave some form of security for their grandchildren. It seems, and you've indicated that minor children aren't allowed to inherit according to our law. But people are saying, and you've mentioned it as well, that trust funds is very expensive because it erodes what you've left for your grandchildren or your minor
100%.
children.
100%.
Why is it so expensive, and what would be then the better solution as opposed to trust funds? As a grandparent, you want to ensure that something's left in the estate for the grandchildren. Uh, what would be the best option?
So the best option is to use the trust, and the trust will manage the affairs of the kids. In the trust, you can also nominate your own co-trustees, so people that you feel would make the best decisions for those kids. Other than that, you can leave it to somebody else, but from what we've seen, that you never know if that money will actually end up going to the kids or being used for the kids. So it's kind of a risk on your side. So we will always suggest going with the trust, because that's always in favor of the kids, and the trustees are obliged to basically look after the best outcomes for those children.
But we've both agreed, I know too, that uh, putting monies in a trust fund for your children or grandchildren is very costly. Um,
Yes. So
what's the
sorry, Mark. So
alternative? What
so
is
the
the
protection
alternative?
plan, the protection plan also takes care of that. It takes care
Really?
of the trust fees. So just to kind of take you through it, some of the costs that the legacy protection plan covers. So the first cost to always hit an estate is the executor cost, right? And this is basically the person or the entity that will administer the estate legally and distribute that estate to the beneficiaries. Now, the government regulates this fee at 3.5% of the value of the assets, right? So if you go from provider to provider, you should find that it's more or less the same sort of fee structure. It also could be 4%, 4.025% inclusive of VAT. So we're looking at about 40,000 for every million that you own. Right. So that's the first cost. The second one is your testamentary trust cost, also known as your children's trust. And this also can have quite a substantial effect on the estate, like we mentioned before. This is with Tazkiya, it's 0.75% of the trust assets on a yearly basis. The third major fee to hit an estate is the conveyancing cost. If you own a property, when you pass away, the title deed does not automatically move over to your loved ones and beneficiaries. We need to appoint conveyancers based on the value of the property. We need to move that, coupled with your property clearances. So 3 months water, lights, rates and taxes that are paid in advance to move those properties across. The fourth and final major fee is called a master's office fee. And basically, when you pass away, we need to register your deceased estate. We need to advertise in the government gazette. We need to pay correspondence fees. And also there's basically some non-estate asset claims. So things like your life cover, your pensions, your providence, we just also ensure that those are paid out in a timeless manner.
Gosh almighty, even after you've died, you still have to pay
Yeah.
taxes. It's unbelievable.
Well, this is not really taxes. This is legal
Your
administration of the
estate is
estate,
paying
right?
all of that.
Yes. And then you still got your tax element that comes and sit on top of that.
Oh,
And if
goodness
you
me,
do,
it's not
and if you do
over
have
yet.
debts, and if you do have debts, that also comes and sits on top of it. So with not going too much into detail, Tazkiya also does, we're the first company in South Africa to offer Sharia compliant life cover, right? And this also can be used to take care of those taxes, those debts, and to create some liquidity outside of the estate.
Okay, phew. It's quite
It's quite a
complicated, is it
mouthful,
not? So you
yeah,
definitely need
yeah.
one.
Yeah,
One
so it's almost
definitely
like,
needs to talk to you,
yeah,
to a
so
consultant.
an estate, every estate is different. It's almost like your fingerprint. Everyone has a different fingerprint. So definitely, people need to get in touch with Tazkiya. Let our consultants come out. It's a free consultation. We come to you. We try to make it as easy as possible for you. All you need to do is visit, Tazkiya website and say, click on the call me back button, or contact us on the number that's provided on the website. So just once again, that's tazkiya.co.za, tazkiya.co.za.
What happens if one passes away and at the time of your passing, uh, there aren't any other heirs, Muslim heirs alive? So there aren't any heirs to pass on the inheritance to.
Gee, then it goes to for the greater benefit of the ummah if you've left a Sharia will.
And the all important question, why does Tazkiya use a waqf?
So a work of you're talking about like the takaful, basically, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Right. So basically, the
And how is
takaful.
that fund? Yeah, how is that fund structured? The Takaful fund. How is it structured?
So let's start with kind of sort of the definition of a takaful, right? So a takaful is basically a guarantee, right, or a mutual guarantee. So it's important to note that takafuls are not a new thing. They've been around since the time of the Prophet, and basically people would use takafuls to kind of pull funds together in a time of distress for the greater benefit of the members of that takaful. So what you'd find is people would contribute in sort of unequal shares and derive in equal shares for the greater benefit of those people. And the Prophet ﷺ was so pleased with this action that he said that I am from them and they are from me. So with the Tazkiya, we do utilize takaful, but there's sort of modernization, a bit of modernization in this takaful. And instead of contributing dates, flour, bread, whatever it may be, we're now contributing money to kind of guarantee each other for expenses and those sort of things.
Why is life insurance haram but Tazkiya is compliant?
So if we look at traditional life cover structures, there's an interest element in the money, right? As well as we see that there's investments into alcohol, gambling,
Ah,
things that are sort of haram, right? So with Tazkiya, we do, there's no interest, there's no investments into alcohol, anything that's haram, it is a takaful fund. It's managed by a Sharia board. We also got quite esteemed muftis sitting on this board. So it's not just anybody that we've taken off the street, basically. If I can just mention a few names, Mufti Karan, before he passed away, quite well known in the Western Cape region, he was sitting on the board, and he kind of helped us to set up Tazkiya. Then we got Mufti Shafiq Jakura in the KZN region. We got Mufti Ahmed Suleiman, Mufti Yusuf Suleiman, Mufti Muhammad Valley, and Mufti Zaid Haspatel, all sitting on the board as well.
Okay, final question. What is the main difference between an Islamic will and a conventional will?
All right, so the conventional will, basically, you are in control, you say who gets what. In a Sharia will, there's a predetermined distribution based on who's alive when you pass away. It's important to note that Allah has decreed the shares that each member of the family would get, right? So it's just dependent on who's alive when you pass away. And there's three main categories of distribution in a Sharia state, right? This can change depending on your family makeup, but based on the majority, there's three main categories. The first one is your parents. If your parents are alive, they must get a share from you. Oops, sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I thought the call dropped off for that. So if your parents are alive, they must get a share from you. Second in line is your spouse. If you are married, your spouse or spouses must get a share from you. And the third category is your children. Your children should also inherit from you.
Okay, and that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed, Nadir Fortune, consultant at Capital Legacy, talking to us about World's Week in South Africa and what is the Tazkiya Legacy Protection Plan. Thank you indeed for your insights. I'll be giving you a call soon. You take care and Assalamu
Jazakallah.
alaikum
Take
to
care,
you.
right? Assalamu alaikum. Bye.
It's 9:33 News and Views on Salam Media. Standing by to talk with us is our next guest, and that is Claude Naiker. He's from the PSA, and we're going to be looking at the 350 grant calls are that it should be increased to 1,500 Rand per month. Stay with us.